Well, good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to today's webinar. We're going to focus on the requirements management capabilities within Codebeamer. So leading the presentation and the overview today is Andrea Francis, who is an associate solutions consultant with PTC's Virtual Center of Excellence, as well as an applications engineer. So if you have any questions as we go through the webinar, feel free to put those into the Q&A box and we'll answer them at the end. But without further ado, Andrew, I'm going to let you take over and we'll get started.
Thanks, Rob, and
Thank
welcome
you.
everybody. Today we'll just be walking through Codebeamer in a nutshell, and then focusing especially on how to actually go in and manage all of our requirements inside of the system. And really starting off with different challenges that we see out today in the industry and what leads to as to why you would even come to use a system like Codebeamer. What we see out with really a lot of our customers is teams are working in isolated silos. You're working on the software side of things, hardware side of things, electrical side of things, firmware side of things. You might be in manufacturing. You might be just at the highest level, even defining what the product will be and what it will encompass. You might be working on different versions. You might be paper-based. You might be even working on some automated systems, but it's just all over the place. You might have multiple different tools and they might be coming from different sources. You might not have the best integrations out there to give you full visibility as to how everything is being managed, how everything is being tracked, and if you're covering everything as far as standards, regulations, if you're working from the quality side of things, risk and reliabilities. There's a lot that goes on. As far as a product is concerned, when you're going in and defining it. So when you don't have the proper tools to allow you to be as successful and to scale and to improve, you won't be able to work as effectively and as efficiently as you should be. And that's where Codebeamer as a system comes in. It's our application lifecycle management tool, or our ALM system, for both advanced product and software development. What you see on the screen is really the breadth of capabilities that we have. And today we'll just be focusing on requirements management, but as far as just general capabilities, we're able to go in and create our requirements, define them, and break them down however we'd like. Really, if we think about our V model, our engineering V, starting from the left hand of that V, looking at our requirements definition, our regulations, our different standards, and then pushing into the right hand side where we have our testing, our validation. We're able to decompose and link all of these different aspects together inside of the system. Now, to get everybody started, what we offer is we have compliance templates, and these are specific to different vertical markets, different types of industries, and different standards within those industries. So we have a few here on the screen. There's quite a lot more. I just didn't put a picture of them, but focusing on in the automotive industry, medical device, pharmaceuticals, there's quite a lot of different types of industries that we work with. FA&D, for example, and these are starter packages. So you're getting in with some starter configuration already in place, and it gets you ramped up as quickly. We can configure them as well per your processes, your products, and how you do things as far as a company and organization is concerned. We also integrate with multiple different types of tools out there. So some of them are here on the screen, mainly Excel, Word, Microsoft tools, GitLab, GitHub, Bitbucket, so software or source code type tools where we're storing all of our codes. Jira, for example, Doors, we can integrate with all of these different tools. And then we have REST APIs and Swagger APIs as well to really connect out to different types of systems that you might be using. And then one of the important aspects as well that we talk about, especially at PTC, is sure, we're defining our product, our requirements in Codebeamer, but is it on an island on its own, or how are we connecting it out to different other softwares and aspects in really the life cycle of our product? And that's where we're coming in as kind of a strong tool, I would say, really connecting out to something like a PLM system windshield as an example, taking a look at how our hardware, our electrical aspects are being managed, how they're tracked, how we are linking from our requirements downstream to our engineering, and then how that gets propagates down to our manufacturing and servicing folks as well. So tying together that whole digital thread together and providing proper end-to-end traceability across the chain. So we can keep track of all of the changes, any of the impacts as well inside of the system, and then how those impact elements in something like Windchill, and then really provide all of those end-to-end traceabilities, whether it's at the test level, at the validation level, at tasks level, or even at the engineering level where changes to something like a CAD file needs to happen. Questions up until now, Rob? Do we have anything in the Q&A?
Actually, we do have one question. Is
Sure.
there a DO-178 template?
There is templates around the DOs. I'll have to take a look at that specific one that they're asking, but we have quite a few of them available.
All right, so we'll get back to you on that answer specifically.
Mhm.
Thanks for the question.
Okay. I'll switch over to our demonstration and start diving in deeper into how we're bringing in our requirements inside of Codebeamer, how we're managing them, and how those could tie across to some of the other elements that we might have and are managing inside of the system. So starting off, if nobody has ever seen Codebeamer, this is the interface. We're starting off here. Let's say we want to go in and um, create a new project as an example. We're able to go in and just click on our plus button, and that would allow us to either create a new project from just a blank canvas, or if we have one of our vertical market templates, we're able to use them, reuse them across. We can go in, name our project. We might have a key for it. We might even put it in certain categories where, let's say, at our company, we might be working along different types of projects and we're categorizing them. So we have that option of how we're organizing everything. But then the system automatically starts creating all of the elements that compose our project. So right here, as a start, this is the first thing that we see. We are in our wiki page. Now, this is where a user could go in and tailor that wiki page to show information about the project, and this would be visible to all users that have access to that project. But for us, for today, we'll be spending a lot of time in our trackers tab. Now, what trackers are, they are the logical containers inside of the system. All of your information, references, links, specifications, all of them will be stored inside of the trackers. It organizes those, Codebeamer itself organizes those different trackers by really placing each item into exactly one type of tracker. So you might have a customer requirement tracker, and then all of the information would be within that tracker. And then you might have systems, you might have subsystems for hardware and software and electronics, for example. You might have tasks. So there's quite a lot of them that you can go and create. And then you're able to link them and have relations between each of these trackers, either within a project or even with other projects as well. So there's a lot that you can do as far as how you're configured. Now, an example of how you're able to see how those links happen, well, you're able to take a look at it at the highest most level by starting with your configuration diagram. This here shows for this particular project that we just created, how all of our items themselves are linked together. Well, the arrows show kind of a bi-directional traceability of the relation of what's happening between our risks and our system requirements, our change requests and our system requirements, the tasks, the bugs, and the test runs in this case. And then we also have our requirement specifications, customer requirement specifications. Now, if we want to actually go inside of one of our trackers, starting at the highest most level with our customer requirements, we have a blank canvas. We want to start by bringing in the requirements that we might already have in another system like Word or Excel, Jira, Doors. We want to bring in that information and start managing it inside of Codebeamer. Now, there's lots of ways of doing it. We're going to go with the simple route for today is just taking in uh, requirements that are already managed inside of a Word document that I have. So if I switch over and bring over that Word document, we're going to see an example of how we are keeping track of them. We have, in this example, an automotive case where we have a chassis, we have a suspension, we have a sub requirements under those. So we're not just managing customer requirements. We might be managing our system requirements, our hardware, our electronics. We might be also managing test elements, all in that one Word document. So what we're going to do is we can, first of all, directly import it inside of Codebeamer. And based on just the format of the headings inside of that Word document, we are able to have Codebeamer automatically use import rules and move all of the different elements and items inside of their correct um, tracker. So in my case, I have two different levels or three different levels. In this case of my trackers, I don't just have my customer requirements. I have my customer requirements, my system requirements, and then I have some testing and validation happening. So in my import rules, I can go in and tell it, these are the headings and these are the trackers that these headings and the information under them would go into. And it's very simple to do, so we can import in mass uh, multiple items and requirements, tests, tasks that we have. We can even preview them as far as checking in the number that should go into the proper trackers and seeing how everything is portioned out. But that's it. We already have the configuration as to how each of these trackers are related. So once we bring them in, all of the links are already inside of the system. We have our chassis as an example, and we have our downstream reference to what we already had inside of our Word. We have it already stored in here as well as part of the import that we just did. So it's not complicated for us to import in our data. Now, as far as continuing on working on inside of Codebeamer, what I can do is go in and add in any new requirements that come up. So we might have some legacy data or some data that is already managed inside of the system, and we're migrating from there. So we can start by either bringing in the information and then continuing on building upon it and expanding on it to properly evolve our product that we have. Now, an example of creating a downstream reference would be, let's say we're going in from our customer requirement. We want to create a downstream reference to a risk or a system requirement or a task. It's very easy for us to do based on the logic that we already have as part of our project and our configuration. We can go in and, let's say, as an example, go in and create that system requirement. We're able to define all of the different metadata for it in this case. So what it mitigates, maybe its parent in this case, we already know which customer requirement it links to. Maybe we're assigning it to an individual, or we're setting it as a certain type. It might be a functional or a safety type of requirement that we have. So we can go in and label all of these as needed for our definition. And it shows up, of course, in the downstream reference of that particular customer requirement that we're working on. Now, what happens if I go in and make a change to that customer requirement? So this is taking in an example of I am changing one item at my highest level, and it could be also in your middle levels, but the example in here would be at the highest level. If we make a change, any type of change, whether it's, let's say, assigning it a type of a functional type of requirement, adding in a complexity. Now, what happens to your downstream items? Do you know which ones are impacted and what needs to happen after that? Yes. The indication of that in Codebeamer would be these suspected links that we have. If you took a note of how it was previously, it was a very bluish, a grayish color that was not as noticeable, I guess, next to the item. But now after we've made that change, it is red. What it means is after I've changed red, that means that, oh, this is one of the impacted items based on a top level change. We're able to go in that item, take a look at the changes that happen, and then choose on applying the changes, making additional changes if necessary for it, and then we're good to go. So this is our impact analysis tool that we have inside of the system. It keeps track of all of our changes and the impacts of the changes that we have as we're working and collaborating inside of the project. Something else to know, and I might have hinted at it when I just started with importing my data, is we have integrations with Microsoft tools. So not just about importing the data and then just being happy with it inside of the system, but we're also able, if let's say a user prefers working in an Excel type format or in a Word type format, what we can do is we have something called a round trip export. And what this does is you're able to work with your Microsoft tools, so Word and Excel, and make sure that your data is not duplicated back inside of the system. So let's say that me as a reviewer, I'm going in and taking a look and reviewing multiple different requirements that have been created and providing feedback on them or making changes to them. I might be doing that in bulk. So what I could do is I could download or export an Excel file of, let's say, my customer requirements in this case. I can go in, apply all of my changes onto my Excel sheet. Let's say I'm going in, changing the different types of requirements that I have, just assigning them what type they would be, assigning them to different users that we have, just modifying the information in this case. I can do that in bulk. And what happens is I can bring back that Excel sheet inside of Codebeamer, and Codebeamer wouldn't duplicate my information. It would take a look at the information, compare it to what it already has inside of the system, and then understand those differences and update existing information and import in new items that we added on into our export or our Excel sheet. And I'll show you that as I go through this. So this is my Excel sheet. I'm bringing it in, and this shows a simple view of all of the items that we have in our Excel sheet. So we have our rows, and it also shows us the changes that happen to, let's say, the type and the complexity and the people that have been assigned that specific requirement. We can even go more granular and actually taking a look at maybe new items that have been created or the granular changes. Maybe it might be a very large Excel sheet, so we want just visuals of the updates that happen. But we can check on our data, make sure that everything is correct. And then those changes, we can finish our task here, and then they get brought back into our system for us to continue managing on and collaborating on um, as we're working on our product. So in this case, we have the new items. So we have the changes to our types, to the complexity, to the person that has been assigned those different tasks. And you can also take a look at the downstream references. In this case, we have the suspected link, meaning it still understands that this item has changed. Thus, these are the impacted downstream references to it. As a user, you might want to go and check it out and apply the changes or make changes as necessary for it. Now, another thing to know with Codebeamer is the ability to keep track of all of those traces and reporting on them as well. So as part of a lot of what our customers do across multiple industries is they need to either go through audits, they need to report on the data, whether it's to higher up management as to where they're at from a progress or completion sort of perspective. From a requirement standpoint, you maybe want to be able to see where those traces are at from, let's say, your customer requirements to your system or subsystem requirements to test cases. as well. So you want to be able to see those in kind of a matrix view that is easy to understand and keep track of. We have a lot of reporting capabilities inside of the system where Codebeamer automatically builds in reports for you based on the trackers or the type of information that you want reported on. It automatically takes it from just what the project is, where it's being managed, and the data inside of it. And in this case, we're showing a traceability report from our customer requirements to our system requirements down to our test cases and test aspects. So we have those three different levels. We can definitely add more if needed, if we want to show more data, but this is just one of the examples of going granular and taking a look at how our data is tracked, how it's structured, and if we're going in the right or the wrong direction from a management perspective. Now, another way to view as well how the data itself is traced or how it's structured is going back into the tracker and taking a look at something called the traceability document view configuration. Now, what this does is instead of building an entire report for you, maybe inside of the tracker, you might prefer to see all of the different downstream items along with your customer requirements. You just don't want an individual view of just the customer requirements. So we can bring in all of these different levels into one individual structure that we can work with. We can filter through it as well, see it from, let's say, the left side of the screen where we're just taking a look at the level 1 items, in this case, our system requirements, or maybe level 2 where we're going deeper into the test cases. So you're able to really toggle between either a document view or a document view with all of the items inside of it. We can even toggle with a table view, sort of like an Excel sheet tabular view. We can even go into a Kanban board sort of view. So you have multiple approaches and as to how, as a user, you would prefer to view the data and interact. On the side of interacting with the data and manipulating it, one of the biggest, I would say, important aspects is sure, you have multiple projects that you are working on. Maybe you're evolving your product into a different version or a different type of configurations and things like that, or a different option and variant kind of approach. A lot of the requirements that you might have for the products might be reused in other products as well, or just a different version of the project that you are currently working on. So a lot of times when I talk to people, what they struggle with, how are we managing that? How are we managing reusable items? Are we duplicating information? Are we keeping track of them separately? How does that go? So there's multiple approaches for it inside of Codebeamer. You can create something called a reusable library, a reuse library, where you store reusable items either from current projects or from multiple other projects. And in this way, you're just much more efficient as to how you're utilizing the data and reusing it. So maybe some of your customer requirements are the same across the different variants of your products. You just would drag and drop them onto your current project that they are on, and the links and the relations are still present. So those are still applicable to the items that you have. So it's very simple for you to go in and bring in information, whether it's from your common reused library or from other projects that you are working on, and then keep track of them as part of any changes that happen and as part of the individual project in and of itself. So for these different items, they have their own details, their own traceability, any associations and children's and references, all of those are brought in. So if we take a look at that with one of the examples of the chassis in this case, there's a lot of detail that goes into how you're defining your requirement. You have your main details as far as to what the name of the item is, its status as far as a workflow goes, if it's part of a release, if a team is assigned to it, its traceability, its description. But you also have any comments that have been left. Maybe people are collaborating inside of the system and they're providing feedback as part of either a review process or an approval process. They can leave attachments, individual comments, tag other teammates as well, and then draw their attention to the item that they might be working on. So let's say in this case, I'm drawing attention to Pat, my coworker, and say, hey, this needs work. Of course, I need to provide more additional feedback as to why this needs work and what needs to change, but you get the idea here. And we're keeping track of the history as well. So as we're making changes to our item, take note that for now we're on the first version of that chassis requirement. If we go in and apply, let's say, a type or a complexity to it, let's say we want this to be a complex sort of requirement that we are working on. As we go in and come back to it, the history itself update. So we are on version 3 because we already left comments, so that would be version 2. And then when we added the complexity, that versioned on automatically for us. And we can revert, of course, back to previous versions if needed, but it keeps track of all of it for us automatically. We have the traces as well. So in this case, our chassis is related to our downstream item. And this is whether we're viewing it from a traceability report at the highest level or from the individual details of the item itself. We can navigate back and forth between these different items, going from the highest level down to the code level on an item basis, maybe even looking at source code commits and things like that. From, let's say, connection to GitHub or Bitbucket, we're able to trace through all of it. Okay, any questions, Rob, up until now? Because I could switch back to my PowerPoint. This is as far as the demonstration is concerned.
No questions at this time.
Lovely. So just to end this webinar today, what we've gone through is a lot of detail as far as requirements management are concerned. There's, of course, a lot more. And when you're working with a system like Codebeamer, a lot of the things that you'll need to keep note of is what you're getting out of using a system like this. First of all, when you have, let's say, something like Word or Excel, sure, it's easy to go in and manage everything. But when you're growing your business, when you're evolving your products, when you have thousands upon thousands of requirements to manage across different teams, you even incorporate some standards and regulations in addition to that. If you're managing risks as well with a validation, there's a lot that goes into it. And Excel and Word aren't really the best, I would say, in terms of just managing traces. There, of course, are more complex systems that help through all of that. But what we have with Codebeamer, I think, is a very robust solution as far as collaborating cross-functionally across teams and downstream as well. So looking not just at people that work from a software perspective or even from a requirements management perspective, but also looking at your mechanical engineers and electrical engineers that actually work with the CAD, with the data, down to your manufacturing and your servicing folks. So you have that life cycle traceability across the board when you're working from your ALM to down to, let's say, to your engineering, to your PLM system and other systems that you're working with. And it's at a low cost as well. The tool is set up, you get started with it. It's easy. We have templates that make it easier. We have partners like working with Rob's team, for example, that could help you get implemented and started with. So there's a lot that goes on into it, and you're able to tie it back across through your other systems as well. So it's not really replacing a system, it's more incorporating it into what you already have and evolving on it and scaling on it. And that's really what I had to go over today. Anything from you, Rob, that you wanted to add on?
No, I just want to thank you for taking the time to give us such a good look at Codebeamer and requirements management, and also want to thank the people who joined today who showed interest. So this webinar has been recorded. We're going to upload it to our YouTube page within the next day or so. and we will be sending out the recording to you very soon. So if you have any questions or need any additional information, feel free to respond to the email invitation that was sent to you. Responding to those emails come directly back to me, and I'd be glad to answer any questions or help you out in any way, shape, or form. So once again, Andrea, thank you very much
Yeah, of
for
course.
leading us today. Great job as always.
Thank you.
And thank you to our audience, and have a great day, everyone.